Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 125 of Genn and Millie, where a Gen Xer and Millennial share the strength-based perspective through which they view the world. We are your hosts, Allison and Tess, and it has been a minute.
It has been a minute. Life has been life.
Life has been lifing, and Tess has been moving, and Allison has been traveling, and so I'm very grateful that we were able to find time to come into this space. This is a sacred container to me that I look forward to, and when the containers shift, you're in a new container, I look forward to hearing all your observations about a new container, and I'm hoping we can share a little bit about that today.
Yeah, it has been wild. I'm officially an Iwegian, as I used to call them. I guess an Iwin formally now, which is crazy. I mean, I mean, 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks. I've been here now in Des Moines, officially ahead of my job, and definitely very hard to close out life in DC. Very sad to leave DC. In a way that I was not sad to leave Omaha. I was sad to leave Omaha. But the grief around leaving DC was a lot more, and has continued to be a lot more than the grief around leaving Omaha. And that's a whole other can of worms that I am unpacking and processing and reflecting on. I think my therapist in many ways put it very well. Dr. Pam, bless her heart, for being with me all this time. I liked a lot of my life in Omaha, but I was really ready to leave it. I loved my life in DC and could have lived that life forever, so I didn't want to leave it. And that was a big thing that I'm still working through, but little things here and there that have made me very excited to be in Des Moines. It's been exploring a little bit, down by the river, the Arts Center, so many great breweries and restaurants that I've been checking out. Been loving setting up my space, that adaptability and the aesthetic of it, both my home space, which is not necessarily an apartment. It's a little more dated, a little older, mostly picked it for budget reasons and somewhat location. And so I knew I wanted to do a lot to spruce it up, to make it worth being in a location I wasn't the most excited about, and in a space that really wasn't aesthetically something that I loved, but making it something that I loved. So I've been doing that over the last few weeks, as well as setting up my office as a professor. Got bookshelves and protest posters and coffee machine and all the things that are needed for that space. So that's been lots of new containers for me, and that's been really fun.
And you can hear George enjoying the new container in the background. He is, is there anything more content sounding than a snore?
Than a pug snore? I mean, it's kind of white noise to me at this point. I'm glad you named it, because it's just kind of always there.
Again, like any container, when you come into a container you're not familiar with, the things that you notice. And if you're new to Genn and Millie, you might notice George. If you're seasoned to Genn and Millie, that's just George. It might just be noise in the background. I want to ask a little bit, and I hope that's okay that I just jump in with my input questions. But I love that you are naming the difference in the moves and the difference in the feeling of grief. And grief is, I don't remember who said this or how they said it, but they said it much better than I did, and I wrote it down somewhere, and now I don't know where it is. But grief is an expression of love, and love is still expressed in grief. And I don't think that we probably talk enough about transitions as being spaces and containers of grief. And the season of life that you were in when you left Omaha, and the season of life that you're in now, as you become a Des Moinesian, is that how you say that? Iwegian, Des Moinesian, Iwegian.
Sure.
This is a different season.
Cancel me here if anybody locally listens to this.
Well, If we haven't been canceled by this point, I mean, it's some kind of miracle.
Touche.
And if you listen back to old Genn and Millie when were still associated with teammates, the fact that we were able to continue is clearly no one listens.
I had to add that caveat.
Yeah, clearly no one listens. Right. You know who listened to that? Me. I was the one who worried about that. But I'm just thinking the season of life in which you're in now is quite different. And adaptability, as you named already, in a season of grief, what does that container look like? Because there's probably joy in a new, unknown container. But what does adaptability in grief look like? Because I don't want to call it below the line. I don't think grief is fairly expressed as an above the line experience.
Yeah. And I think the benefit here, and I think here's where my strengths butt heads, because they do, because a lot of them don't look like they should work well together, right? But the context that just like wants to hold on and wants to relish what is and what has been really butts heads with adaptability, right? So I think in my experience, in grief, in change, in transitions, context, I think more of as where strengths fall above and below the line, not the experience, right? Like what pulls me in what direction, right? And context tends to pull me a little bit below the line in how it works with grief. I will say how it works with transitions and moves specifically is that it brings up reminiscing, which is something I want to talk about in a little bit. Is something that popped up during this move. But adaptability, by contrast, relishes this, especially my kind of adaptabilities we've talked about, which really loves a plan and can work with changes and work with moves and work with transitions in the context of a plan. So I knew where I was moving to. I knew my address of and my space of my apartment. I know where I'm going to be work-wise. There's a lot of newness, but it didn't feel daunting. It felt rather easy. And actually, I look back all the time and think that was wildly far too easy for me for a cross-country move where I'm uprooting my entire life. I'm like, I mean, everything ran ahead of schedule. Everybody was where they needed to be all the time. Everything, and yes, some of those things couldn't have worked, but I would have rolled with it if they hadn't. I rolled with it when the movers that came and unpacked the truck here were like, you've got a third floor walk up. Like, yes, I gave that in the descriptions and the details, and I confirmed it when I called your company. But they struggled with that on an 90-degree day with like 80% humidity, right? So like we added a little bit of time to their move and I paid them a little more. Like we roll with it. And I think there's how it functions. I think adaptability is an above the line strength in transition. Particularly when that transition is anticipated. That's my experience with it. And that's not necessarily the experience with everyone with adaptability. But I knew this change was coming. I planned for it. I over-planned for it. Everything didn't go according to plan, but a lot of things did because I knew what needed to be taken care of. And that's a bit of the benefit, the above the line, the almost... in my element, the flow. I mean, the flow that adaptability feels in the context of a big change. Like, this is where I can shine. I can manage the details. I can manage, and I can get excited about what's to come. And I think that's been my saving grace for a lot of it because leaving DC was such a hard, the way that I've described it to people is there's a unique kind of grief when one dream comes at the expense of another.
Oh.
And... make me cry.
Wow, we can put quotes around that.
And that's a lot of how I'm feeling. Like I'd always dreamed of living in DC. I loved living in DC. I would love to live there again. But I got to live that dream for a bit. And I had another dream to be a professor. And I get to live that out now. And it happens to be at the expense of living in DC.
I imagine so many of our listeners can relate to what you just said. Um, in that quote, when one dream comes at the cost of another. And my move here was a dream. And the consequences of that have been bigger than me.
Yeah.
So, not just when one dream comes at the cost of another, but when one dream impacts the dreams of others.
Yeah.
If we could do a little interview with George, which might be really fun, put a pin in that. What would George say? What would George say in what he's noticed in you? What would George say about the difference in containers? What would George say about his own grief? I want to go back to, thank you, George. I want to go back to, I hear you're strategic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the adaptability strategic plan blend is on fire in the midst of big change that take a lot of logistical planning. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Transition is great. However, let's have a really solid pathway about it. You have, I think what you said was strengths that don't necessarily work well together. Yet I would push back and say these are actually, like, you have the ultimate of complementary partners within you.
Yeah.
If you were to seek someone to complement you, it's like within.
Yeah.
And I do think naming context and the grief that you you're going to be speaking of that dream in your life's narrative forever.
Yeah.
So context maybe wasn't as ready to let go. As I've been teaching more about strengths, I've used the analogy of, how Inside Out, the movie, did such a great job naming emotions like characters.
Yeah.
And it helped like normalize emotions. I'm starting to get to that with strengths. Like, could we look at strengths as like Pixar characters so that we're a little bit more kind to them and a little bit more loving towards them, and that it kind of made them, they have minds of their own. They have moments of above the line, below the line as their own sort of being. It's very much around the archetype sort of work, like naming your archetype. But like naming, for me, my strategic looks a lot like my architect of the inner critic.
Yeah.
Below the line. Really thinking about seasons of grief.
Yeah.
And that grief is not limited to our cultural definition of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the part, and again, I don't remember who told me this and exactly what they said, but how grief is love is that and felt and loved that experience enough to feel it in your body, longing, missing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, that's what looking back allows us to do, is with like love.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly, all of the, I can't even put my finger on a specific example, but I think about all of like the super tear-jerky romance movies, like The Notebook. Like, it's like, would you ever, like, the loss hurts so much, but would you ever choose a different pathway? Like, would you choose not to have the hurt you have now because it comes at the expense of the love that you once had? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the great thing about being a quote-unquote writer, and even worse, having put stuff out there publicly at one time, which I have since taken down. If you are an alleology reader, you may notice that you don't have access anymore. There's a few that you that do. To look back and see my grief and not be as emotionally in it, of course, as I was, because now you have this 360 view, and you can look lovingly at your younger self and say, oh, what a dipshit you are, being all caught up in that guy Allison, I'm talking to Allison, being all caught up in that situation, but then to reflect and read it and think, in that moment, would I change? Absolutely, I would not change that experience because I felt deeply and experienced deeply. And to me, there's like nothing more in life than that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So when I think about my context in the space of this change, obviously there are a lot of things that make it pull transitions more below the line. But one of the big things that context serves, one of the very, very big above the line functions that context serves in change is the beauty of reminiscing. And I laughed. I got all of these messages from my cousin in this group message of all like the women in my family, of all these old photos of our like parents, like from middle school and high school, because my aunt bought a house and moved after her divorce. And so they were like walking down memory lane, right? So I got to do a little bit of that. My time was a bit crunched, and so I definitely didn't reminisce as much. But I stumbled across something that I forgot that I had, which was a book I believe I got from Half Price Books at one point. There's like a guided planning book, and we talked about this book on this podcast. Correct. Which is the book 5, Where Will You Be 5 Years From Today? And I completed this in 2019, 6 years ago. So just about 5 years. Okay, so I wanted to pull out a few things because
this is so good.
It is very, very, very wild. I totally forgot I had this. I had to kind of piece together when I completed it. It wasn't dated, but based on the context and based on a few things that I did date in here, it was definitely sometime early 2019, if not late 2018. So it walks you through a bunch of different things. It's a really cool guided, it almost looks like a picture book. I'll take a photo of it and post it with our episode. But one of the things is to write, I flagged, I think, 4 or 5 things that I want to bring up. One of the first things is that they ask you to write a mission statement, which we've done before, which we've talked about before in the podcast. I wrote here, my mission is to enlighten the world around me through research, education, and advocacy. Which continues to hold true today. The next section that I highlighted here for us to talk about was, if you don't have a dream, how can you have a dream come true? So it's about stating and putting goals on paper. And a few of my goals: get my PhD, publish my work for others to read, become a full-time tenure-track professor.
Oh my goodness, this is good.
There's a page where it asks you to be really specific, to actually sketch out a dream that you have. And what I sketched out was a book. And on the title of that, it says The Dissertation of Tess Starman.
Oh my goodness.
And then I have 2 more things. One, there's a section about volunteering and making the world a better place, like making a difference in the world. And it says, you are the one that you've been waiting for. Write down your ideas about how to make the world better. And I said, I aim to enlighten the world on areas of advantage, disadvantage, and inequality, specifically related to the church. Which essentially was my dissertation.
Is your dissertation, yes.
And then finally, the one that I highlighted here was I was asked to write down a definition of success. And so I said, success looks like a life where others around me benefit. A life where my presence is a contribution that empowers, teaches, listens, and encourages those around me. Success looks like a job that comes from my passions and my gifts, not something that makes ends meet. And I feel like that's wild to be stepping into exactly
at this very moment. Yes.
So I did a lot of reminiscing, and I have been planning and I have been preparing and I have been working towards my PhD, through what happens next for a long, long time. But that was such a succinct summary of something that I had dreamed into existence a long time ago and then put plans into action and have now made happen. And I wrote about it when I shared that I got the job. I wrote about it on social media, and it was actually Anne, who consulted with us at Teammates, who once told me that dreams without plans are just wishful thinking. And I had this dream forever ago to be a professor to get my PhD, but didn't know anybody that had done it and didn't know if I'd be good enough. But I tried anyway, and living the values we try and talk about here, like I knew that I had to try anyway. And I am just like now just wildly emotional just talking about the fact that this is here. Like in a week and a half, formally, my contract begins as a professor, as a teacher, as an encourager and an empowerer of students in their learning. And, anyway, so there's that.
And what a testament to integrity. I mean, you have lived your values. You have lived your values. And you have literally a roadmap that you mapped out that set you on your path, but you have lived in your values. I mean, is there anything better than right now reading back to that? And I mean, beyond the I said I could and I would and I did, in addition to, and I did it within my values. Like so aligned in who you know you are, who you have said you are, and who you intend to be. Like that's the definition of integrity. Which in my time of knowing you, Tess, it's probably the gift that you radiate and give so freely and so intentionally that you don't even know that you're demonstrating it to other people or you're providing an example to other people. I mean, I could only hope that people younger than the two of us listen to this episode. Not sure. But I could only hope that someone who was where you were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago would hear this and hear the joy and reminiscing and the celebration of, honoring those goals, but the integrity in which you achieved them. There were many years in my years of knowing you that integrity was tough to see. It was not modeled consistently around us. And, I talk about it all the time. I could only hope to say that I've lived it. And you have just displayed evidence that for sure you have. I want to name and acknowledge and pin that our next episode, I'll get out my shit. It's not in a pretty book like that. I'll get my shit out because I keep it. But I haven't looked at it in a long time. But I keep it in an alleology notebook, a 3-ring binder, that when I started contemplating departure. Also, 6 years ago, I began one of the greatest departures that I did not know was going to be great. That almost killed me, grief-wise. But it was...
you didn't want and didn't ask for.
And certainly didn't put on a map, but has been one of the greatest things that could have ever happened in my life. Hands down. So next episode, I'll look back as to where I said I would be. I also found just recently I had written out dating. I had written out qualities I was looking for in a partner because I got that activity from some, who knows, probably from Cosmo for all I know. Actually, I don't read Cosmo, and I have a really funny story about Cosmo that I want to make sure I share in this episode. Okay. I got that from someone who said, write down the qualities you're looking for in a partner, and I found that note recently and cannot believe how aligned that is. It's like I spoke it into the universe, and then I got this engineer brain that I've been dealing with now for the last couple of years. But anyway, let's get to the Cosmo part because it's funny and we both should laugh a little bit. I will probably laugh really hard that you'll have to edit this. So I have a group that I'm lucky enough to be included in their tight circle. I'm not going to name them, but you know who I'm talking about, and those listening know who I'm talking about. So every once in a while I get to travel with them, and really lucky to spend some time in a cabin in Estes. Had tried to be hosty, like me, try to be hosty. And I think they also wanted to be like, what does Allie like? And, how can we bring things from Trader Joe's that Allie likes? How do we bring the wine that Allie likes? How do we bring the questions that Allie likes? So one of those said people looked up questions to build trust, and this came out of a Cosmo article.
I love that so much.
Okay, all right, well, the story gets better. So, great intent, right? The intent is great.
Oh, no.
And so the first effing question is, tell me something that not many people know about you.
Okay.
So I just want you to picture a group that I kind of know. I haven't known them since birth, kind of know. They're not like my Katie. And I haven't known them as long as I've known you.
Yep.
And you know me. Just here it is, everybody.
Oh, gosh.
So there's four of us. We're kind of in a circle-ish in the furniture. And the question of, tell me something that not many people know about you. Tell me a story not many people know about. And as I'm reiterating this story back to my Katie says, please tell me you did not go first. I said, I sure as hell did. I went first, and she's like, oh, no. So I tell a story that I think, not many people know. It involves, an arrest. It involves some court proceedings. It's pretty tight in the Allison Best. But I'm kind of, I've had a couple glasses of wine. I'm kind of laughing as I tell it. Crickets in this group. Crickets in this group. And they're kind of looking at me and looking at one another like, is she making this shit up, or is this really her true story? And it's a true story. And so I end it with, and I had to borrow professional maternity clothes for this day. And that's all I'm going to give. And it's like crickets. And so I'm looking around the room like, your turn. Anybody want to go next? Their stories are nothing. I mean, paled and compared. One of the stories was like working for an auto parts, store, and having to take auto parts across town in their in the back of their trunk. And I'm like, unless this story ends with, and then I smuggled cocaine across the border. Yeah. No.
I was imagining them saying something like, I tell people my favorite color is blue, but it's actually yellow.
So Allison is sitting and seeping in the fact that she went first.
Instant vulnerability,
and disclosed,
regret. Yep.
Oh, I disclosed like a mic drop level story that like you don't even know.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't even know this story. And it's a shameful sort of story for me. Life turned out okay and everything worked out, but I'm embarrassed by it. Moral of the story, okay? And 3 other people share, and it is like Allison X-rated, and theirs is like a Pixar movie, rated G. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, this is a little life lesson for me. Don't take questions from Cosmo magazine off the cuff. Number 2, that is a tight circle of trust with that group, and I know that they're listening, and I know that they're going to hear me say, even though I disclosed it and went, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that, I do still feel very safe knowing that they are holders of that story. Yeah. However, I was just like waiting for somebody to kind of, match the same level, and it never got there. Yeah. Fast forward, later I'm telling my Katie that story, and she says, oh my God, tell me, you didn't go first. So, Allison, lesson. When it comes to questions like that, let the crowd go first.
Get a temperature.
And then,
Yep.
Yeah, read it, gauge it, and then answer. Yep. So,
I'm dying. Yeah. I'm dying. I cannot handle
Oh, Tess. I mean, I just want you to imagine me sitting there.
I can picture it so vividly. And that's why it's killing me.
And it's a killer story. It's a really, really, really good story with lots of parts, and it expands over months of time, and different characters come in and different situations happen. It's a great story. However,
it was not
check your audience, Allison.
Everybody else was at. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the next day, I had my dose of shame coffee in the morning. Like, should I have said that story? Probably not. And I've talked to him about it 2 times since, and said I really shouldn't have shared that story. But it's become a new line for me with the people I've told. Like, unless your story ends with I smuggled cocaine in my trunk across the border, skip it.
Not good enough.
Not going to match my vibe.
You're going to have no one sharing their stories with you, Allie. Like, you
People
realize your social
People
location. Like, you're not going to have enough people sharing stories with you.
Just to clarify, I did not smuggle cocaine across the border.
Okay.
That's not what the story is.
Yep.
It's just...
You got that. But I appreciate the reiteration for legality.
Calamities.
Okay.
Calamities, yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to do with that. But yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I think
reminiscing, storytelling,
reminiscing and storytelling, and strengths and change. These are all possibilities for our listeners to contemplate. Yeah. I would also love them to contemplate, like, how would you want to answer some of these questions that were perplexing? Like, how would you want to look back on your 5 years? Like, what can you do today that's going to capture that you can look back 5 years later? What are you doing today that's honoring your strengths in season of perhaps grief? What are you doing to name in your trust circle? I loved that was the first question on a list of how to get to know people better. That was the first question of, tell me a story that not many people know about you. And I come in just ablazing with a...
You're ready.
Oh, I'm always ready for questions like that.
Oh, yeah.
But that was question number 1. Mm-hmm. Maybe is your favorite color in the neutrals, or, more in the vibrant shades? That might be a good get to know you sort of starter question. But tell me a story that not many people know about you. I do think, and part of the reason I brought this up, is this container holds a lot of things that maybe not everyone knows about you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And yet it's a podcast.
Yeah, it's public. Yeah. I do think about that. I'm like, I think we've always talked about, because it's like the two of us, it feels like just having a conversation and sitting across from each other in the same room, right? Like we did forever ago. But also, I think this space of being committed to our values, of reflecting on life, of being real, like these values also have brought about a level of psychological safety that we maybe don't always recognize, that isn't fully there in the same way because we do put this up publicly.
I mean,
I don't want to think about it too much.
Speaking of reminiscing, if you listen back to the 2019 era.
Oof.
Ooh.
Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. But some good questions.
So I trust that these questions are going to land in the safest of ways.
Yes.
And I am grateful to be back in this container.
Same.
Grateful for your new container. And next episode, I will share those where I maybe thought I would be questions.
I love that. Well, I'm so grateful for your time, grateful for people listening after our months-long hiatus yet again. But we are so grateful. So thank you, everyone, for tuning into episode 125 of Genn and Millie. If you enjoyed today's conversation, consider sharing this episode with a friend. To interact with us and share your responses to the questions we pose, the best way to do so is by giving us a follow on Instagram at Genn and Millie. That's at GENNANDMILLIE. Until next time.